Hey, everybody, welcome to the Laboratory Podcast. I'm your host, Isaiah, back again with Greg Jones.
Thank you for having me.
Round of applause for Greg Jones. Now, Greg,
Woo.
Greg, I had this interesting conversation with my fiance about parenting because
Okay.
that's coming up for us. She's not pregnant or anything. It's just that
He said,
these
"Hey,
are the type of
by the
conversations
way,
we're
yeah,
starting to have about how to raise kids and how we want to hold our household. And the conversation of discipline came up about how to discipline kids and what's the best approach
for sure."
for raising children. And so I was in favor for getting an ass beating, from because of my childhood, and I was in favor for spankings and physical discipline. But she had a very different approach and said that she only wants
Okay.
to talk to the kids, and reason with them and that kind of thing. So we've had this whole back and forth about it. And I know you're in a similar position with
For
me,
sure.
about to get engaged and married. That's you're in that same boat. So I'm very curious if you've had that conversation, and if what's your stance and experience and where you're at with all that.
Yeah. Yeah, I have had that conversation. The first time I had that conversation, I didn't want to have that conversation. So for context, my girl's from Norway, as you know, where spanking is illegal. The thought her words out of her mouth are, the thought of a child getting spanked could make me cry. That is abusive. That's exactly what she said to me. But
Sounds a
anyways,
little
like we
hyperbolic,
must have
but
been
okay.
dating for like a week. And she was like, "Do you ever think you'd spank your kids?" I said, "I'd beat the fuck out of my kids. My kids are gonna get the shit beat out of them," because that just made sense. Like I grew up getting spanked. And she told me, "What? Like, no, like you never can do that, yada, yada, yada." And basically, week one of our relationship told me, if you want this to be a thing, one of my non negotiables for life is my kids will not get spanked. And I was like, how are you going to make me to commit to such a thing? Like, I'm over
Yeah.
here fighting for my life in terms of like, yo, like, I might actually break up with this shit because I want to beat my kids. Like, when you put it like that, it sounds kind of crazy. But I was pretty pissed at her because I was like, why put me in this position? So yeah. Anyways, to say that we've had this conversation.
And so, what are your stance now on
Yeah.
spankings and beatings and
Yeah, I
all
just
that
say
kind of?
it's an unnecessary form of discipline. I think that there is you could validate any action, but there's just it's not a necessity. You know what I mean? We are an outcome of our experiences and an outcome of how we an outcome of our decisions, our experiences and our decisions. And so I think that our children have the same option.
Okay, so let me give you a scenario. So
All right.
let's say a kid gets in trouble for some type of behavior, right?
Okay.
And then you talk to them or take whatever measures that you want to apply,
Mm-hmm.
and they feel like, oh, that wasn't that bad. I kind of got away with it.
Mm-hmm.
Then they continue to do the behavior, and I was that type of kid where
Yeah.
if I got in trouble and if all I ever got was a talking to, I feel like I got away with it. So then I would keep
Okay.
pushing the boundary. It wasn't until I got spanked or got that belt that I knew that, like, oh, this is actually
This is
serious,
serious. Yeah.
and I don't want to experience this again. So let
Yeah.
me not do that same behavior.
Yeah. I mean, I see where you're coming from because, like I said, I grew up getting spanked and I didn't respond well to getting spanked. My dad took everything away from me on numerous occasions. Didn't bother me. Like, I was a kid who people would look at and say that kid needs to get spanked, you know? Um, but now, today, I think that if that's your situation with your child, I think you've got to ask a few questions about your relationship with them and why they're not valuing your opinion and what you say. You know what I mean? Like, why is it that you don't have a sense of authority and honor with your child? And I feel like physical discipline, while it can create some forms of honor, I think that it also induces fear. And I don't think your children should fear you in the way of like, man, I'm going to be like beat for an action. Because it's like, at the end of the day, you're justifying why you're beating a kid. So what thing could your kid do to where you need to hit them? Like they didn't listen to you once, so now you're gonna spank them. That seems, you know what I mean?
For some parents, you just look for a reason. It could be anything.
But the thing is you wouldn't apply that same discipline to your wife. You wouldn't apply that. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't apply that to your coworker. So
Okay,
why is
yeah.
it okay to apply it to your child?
So my fiance had a similar counter argument. Was like, what's the difference then between disciplining a child and an adult?
Yes.
And then I said there is no difference because the version of that for an adult is prison and the legal system, because you're gonna feel a physical form of
Yeah, for
repercussions
yeah,
for your
but for
actions.
large crimes, but like what thing is your child doing that's a crime that could get them put in the penitentiary?
Okay, so imagine, like, for example, back to my
Yes.
childhood, there was a time where we had like the Scholastic. Remember the Scholastic
School
books,
fairs. Yeah,
school
yeah.
fairs, and they had like all those books. I was the type of kid that always like stole the Yu-Gi-Oh cards out
Okay.
of the Shonen Jump anime books. You guys remember those? Shout out to anybody who does, because that's a real throwback.
Okay.
So I would steal them shits, and one time I got caught for
Stealing.
stealing out of like books and stealing pins, because I always forgot that those were coming up, and I never asked my mom for money. So when they came up, it's like, shit, look at all this shiny ass like
Yeah.
stuff. Stole stuff every single time. When I got caught, best believe, got my ass beat because I was practicing theft for things I couldn't afford or
And-
didn't plan for.
I'm not saying that you shouldn't have been punished for theft, but I don't think that you should have been punished physically. Because even when we look at like prisoners, inmates in prison, if they do another crime in prison, do we spank them? We don't beat them physically. We do what's just and what's right. And I don't think inducing physical harm on somebody else is a necessity to teach somebody a lesson.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm not here to change your opinion on it. I'm just curious about your thoughts, because ultimately,
Okay, how do you justify it?
how do you justify it?
Like, yeah, how do you justify spanking your child?
So here's how
Paint
I
it
would
out.
here's how I would justify it, right? They are practicing a behavior that is not beneficial to them in the long run as being a functioning adult in society, right?
And on what scale are you measuring that?
What do you mean?
Like, how are you deciding what's beneficial for your child in the long run?
Okay, like let's just use that like theft as an example. If you have
Okay.
if they're practicing a habitual habit of stealing things that do not belong to them, in my approach, I would say I'll talk to them on the first two.
Yo, we got our
instances.
socks out right now. I just realized that. Anyways, go
Yes,
ahead.
sir. On the first two instances,
Uh-huh.
I would talk to them, and on the second instance, I would warn them that, hey, this cannot continue, because theft your entire life is wrong, and you'll end up in a worse place
Mhm.
if you don't like learn to stop. On the third time, if I find out this happened, I'm beating that ass. And if on the third time they get the message and they stop stealing, then I would justify it, because the outcome was that they no longer steal
Stop,
and are on
yeah.
that path of stealing.
Yeah. Okay, so would you have a precursor disciplinary plan before spanking? And what would that look like for you?
So the way that me and other people who are on this side of physical discipline, we have a whole writers guild and everything, you know, a whole Reddit thread to this.
You guys have a Twitter space?
Yeah, we do.
Mm.
Yeah, we do. The way that, because for me, it just needs framing, because a lot of cases where people just get spanked and physically disciplined have like no frame of reference as to why. And so a lot of times
Yeah.
kids associate not necessarily the spanking or the pain with the action, but to them as a person. And that causes a lot of
Mm.
internal damage.
Yeah, that's true.
So you
I
have to
would
set
agree.
up like, hey, I found out that you're doing this, and I've warned you about this, and you're continually still doing this behavior. This is only because of your action, not because of who you are.
Yeah, and I guess the reason why this is a sticky subject is because every household would have different standards.
Right.
And that's why I think it's one of those things where it's like, while there are exceptions to rules, it's kind of tricky because it's like, how do you regulate?
Yeah. I would say you should never get spanked on the first offense. I just stick to the 3 strikes rule.
But
you know?
like, if your mom had a rule that was like, hey, you're not allowed to get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night because I'm not able to sleep. And because of that, if you wake me up 3 times, I'm going to spank you.
You should call CPS.
But like,
You
That-
should call CPS.
but do you get what I'm saying though? Like,
yeah, that's crazy.
it is crazy, but to her, she's justified. I work long hours. I'm tired. You're disrupting my sleep. You're not honoring me. You're not honoring my sleep. You deserve to get spanked. Do you see how you can make any conclusion for spanking a child? And I
Well,
just don't think it's a necessary form of discipline.
And on my end
So
on
for
that
you
topic,
personally,
well, just using that example, that is not a pattern of behavior that would deter them from being a functional human being using the bathroom in the middle of the night. As far as like stealing or not looking both ways before you cross,
So
things
you're
that
t-
could hurt them detrimentally in the long run.
okay. Which I get what you're saying, but she could justify that as, hey, you can't go to the bathroom in the middle of meetings, Jimmy.
Yeah. you could justify anything. Doesn't mean it's right.
So what is the justification? Children are helpless. They can't defend themselves. They you know what I mean? They're figuring out the world. They're trying to experience the world. Like, if we don't discipline adults like that, why would we discipline a more vulnerable person like that?
But I feel like we do in certain ways discipline adults that way. Like if an adult is not able to function in society, they either get socially ostracized because of their actions or lack
Mm-hmm.
of ability to then function, or they're literally put in a
Yes.
separate place because of those said actions.
So then, if I said, and I'm gonna ask you a question, if I'm an emotional person, right, or I'm gonna discipline my kid emotionally, and how I view that is by isolating them emotionally. If my 5-year-old or 6-year-old or 7-year-old does something 3 times that I don't like, I'm not gonna talk to them for 3 days. What would you say? You'd be like, "That's fucking crazy."
Not if it gives you the desired outcome for what you're wanting for your child as a parent. And
I
this
guess,
is
yeah.
this is under the presumption that a healthy parent wants
Yeah.
the best thing for their child. And so my whole thing is like whatever works,
Mm.
like utilize it, but let's not take physical discipline off the table
Off the
if it
table.
works for certain
Yeah.
individuals. I know somebody that never got spanked, but when they said like phrases that their parent didn't want them to say, like "I hate you," they would take bars of soap and literally grind it like on their teeth and mouth, like, "Oh, we're washing that mouth out," and that sounds fucking crazy to me too. But I know people who've had that
is
happen.
but that's like physical abuse. You're physically abusing your child by grinding the soap on their teeth and putting a soap bar in their mouth. You wouldn't do that to an adult. That's my whole thing. Is like, if you're gonna discipline a child, don't discipline them in a way you wouldn't discipline an adult, and you wouldn't discipline your partner. You know what I mean?
So for adults though, my whole thing with adults is that if an adult is acting up, you can like tell them what to do, but because they're an adult, I'm not their caregiver. So I'll just let the world teach them those things. And
Yeah.
for me thinking as a parent, I rather give them a little pinch than let the world give them a punch in the face. Cuz a little spanking to me, and especially not like beatings that maybe we've experienced.
And that's probably part of why my perspectives is now, because I cannot imagine doing to my kid what happened to me. And that's not like a shot at my dad. It's not a shot at my mom. It's just like, I just personally cannot like even conceive the image of it.
Yeah.
Like, breaks my heart.
Yeah, no, that's excessive. I think there's a way you can do it that's not in excess. Where like I got the point. Now you're just
What's the number?
unloading.
What if your kid has thick skin? So you adjust the strategy. What's the worst one I've ever had? You go first.
One time, it like my mom is spanking me, and she like either missed or aimed on purpose, but she clipped like the top, like lower part of the back. Woo!
Oh, that was a special one for you?
Yeah, because she knew that like because I have thick thighs,
Yeah.
so my gluteus maximus were impenetrable,
Like I
impervious.
said, my gluteus maximus.
Yeah,
Yeah, my daddy said
I got a thick ass.
my dad used to just swing. So it hit our back sometimes. If our arms are back there, our arms would get got. Yeah, for sure.
With the belt or just like straight fist?
Belt.
Oh,
One time my dad
yeah. I don't know why I'm laughing.
dude, like,
This is how I
but,
cope. Slap it off.
that's when you hit him with a it's like who was it? Bobby Lee talking about how he got raped by an autistic guy.
Oh yeah,
They sit there like,
yeah.
but yeah, no, that shit happened to me, bro. So like, I think that's also probably why I'm like, yeah, I just don't view it as necessary, because the spanking didn't work for me. I didn't respond to the spanking. I still did the things. You know what I mean? And it was probably because I felt like the person disciplining me in that way didn't love me.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a way to frame it, and if it doesn't work, then clearly you know that that's not the right approach. So why do something like that's the definition of insanity, right? Like doing the same pattern of behavior, expecting a different result. So if you're continually spanking your kid thinking that's going to work and it's clearly not, then you got to readjust like the strategy, and that's where patience and observation comes into play about what could really work for a child. And sometimes it's just having a different role model or it could be anything, you know?
Yeah.
But I think if you're seeing a pattern of behavior as a parent that you believe is not best fit for your child, and physical discipline isn't working, then you have to be willing to try different measures and not just try to triple, double down. I mean, I gotta hit harder, or add that crocodile skin on the belt or something like that. You know, maybe I gotta switch the switch from a stick to a belt to a. My mom chased me around.
Crazy.
She was being sarcastic, but she kept after like 5 laps. I was like, "Oh, she's serious." I was like, "No, I can't." Nah.
She really was about to take your head off. She chased you around with
It was like
I don't think we'll be able to air these exposing our parents. I just realized that like this whole shit's about to have to be blurred. My dad will be pissed. He gonna try to spank me again.
Hey, you know what? Then you can find this on our soon-to-be Patreon.
Dude, there you go.
Exclusive access.
Exactly.
So,
Buy Isaiah coffee. Buy Isaiah some toilet paper. 1 roll, 2.
Hey, you know.
Marketing.
But so the conclusion is you're not gonna approach.
No, and I think if I was with a girl who didn't come from the background my girlfriend did, then I might have. But
Got you.
I think talking to her, thinking about it thoroughly, like, yeah, I just have come to the conclusion for me, like, I just want to do it. If other people do, like, that's cool. I think it's, yeah. The thing that, like, also shapes that opinion is when I watch parents do, because, like, I work with kids a lot at church and stuff, and so when I watch the way that parents discipline their children, like, when I see dads, like, snap their finger and get in their kid's face and, like, point their finger in their face, like, I'm just like, oh, like, it just creates, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that, like, your kid doesn't need a stern talking to, or, like, when they grab them super hard and move them where they want to, like, it just makes me think, like, there might be a better way of doing this, you know?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
My whole conclusion is I'm gonna try it. If it works, it works.
So when
If
will
it
you
doesn't,
try it? Like, is this something where, like, this is the last resort? All else fails? Or is this, like, you might just be caught on a day where you're like, you know what? I'm going to spank you.
No, I'm gonna take the 3-step or 3 strikes approach. Where
Okay.
First time we're gonna talk, explain why this is bad, why I don't want this to continue. You know, second time, hey, like what's really going on? I gotta like take something away, or you know, no TV or something. And then on the and set up the premise that if this same behavior happens a third time, you're going to get this result.
Yeah.
You know, and if that just still doesn't work on like, and there's a 4th instance, then I gotta switch it up and maybe try something
Something not physical.
like military school or something. I don't even know.
Military school?
Maybe that's not
one
a
of the
4
worst
step.
things you can
That's
do
like a
to
10
your
step.
children.
I don't know. But basically, there's another approach I need to take. What's wrong with military school? Technically, I went to military school.
Where? Your mom sent you away?
Oh, no.
That's
I was just going to military base.
Okay, yeah. Well, like, military boarding school is, I think, the idea everybody has.
Oh, got you.
And that is wild to me that people do that.
What happens at military? No, that's another conversation.
Yeah, awful things. Oh, wait, I did have one more question for you, though.
Okay.
So the level of offenses in which you'll be putting on the 3-strike rule are things that endanger their life or the life of others? Like what offenses from your children will... I'm just asking because we'll know each other for a long time. So if your kid's 4 and you tell me, oh, I spanked them today because they... Like, I just want to know what your thought process is behind it.
Yeah, I would say things that if that was a pattern behavior to continue into their adulthood, then...
That's so hard.
Yeah, so if they cause physical harm to somebody else, then I would have that conversation twice and then let them know that, like, hey, like, what you're doing to people is not okay. If this happens again, I'm going to spank you.
So that falls in the category of affecting someone else.
Yeah, so stuff like that, stealing, lying.
Lying?
Yeah.
You spank your kids for lying?
The 3rd time they lied to me, yes.
Interesting.
Because I would not spank them if they did something bad and they told me the truth. Because I know that's another thing that happens is that when you lie, you feel like you're saving yourself from like getting spanked because I did this bad thing, and if I go tell them, I'm gonna get spanked anyway.
Yeah.
But if they tell me the truth and I don't spank them, and I say like, hey, I really appreciate you telling me what you did, I'd rather reinforce that than emphasize the mistake. You know, so that's an alternate approach on that matter. That way I can reinforce them that no matter what, you might as well just tell the truth because that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Okay, interesting.
So in that regard, I feel like that would be a better approach than what I had. Because either way, you're getting spanked. It just matter how hard.
How many times?
Yeah.
Where in the house?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Damn.
lying would be in that category after like 3 times because you want to reinforce them telling you the truth. Those are the
Yeah.
things that come to mind right now. Anything else would be like up for discussion. Like not doing your homework. I don't think I would ever spank my kid for that.
Yeah. But that could affect their whole future. Some people would argue that. Like, that's a real thought. Bro, I'm keeping it real. I didn't do any homework. My parents were concerned.
Yeah, but you're starting a business, so it's
Yeah. But like, you know what I'm saying?
yeah. But I
It's
think
hard, I feel like.
it's one thing when you're not observant to like your kid's behavior. Because if I feel like a healthy parent that observes that, oh, a kid has like a specific talent that they're really engaging
Yeah.
in and have a plan to make marketable. If school's not necessarily aiding in that, then it's like, oh well, hey, just kind of like do the minimum to pass, and then we can help cultivate these like desires and
Yeah.
passions. Because I feel like that's the same thing with like Kanye. Not to say that I want my kid to try to like Kanye, it's just as
Yeah.
an example.
But like most parents are just doing what they think's best for their kid. So they're only doing it from what they know. So like for you it's easy to be like, and for myself, like if my kid ever shows signs they're not gonna be good at school, I'm gonna be like, that's my motherfucking kid. You know what I mean? Like business owner it is. But like another parent might look at that and be like, what the hell's my kid gonna do? They're gonna screw their whole life up. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
because they haven't been exposed to the same thing. And that's the only reason why it's like such a nuanced conversation.
Yeah. All I'm saying is if you have 2 kids, right? And they're
Yes.
both in, let's say, healthy spots and
Mhm.
working and functioning in society. One was not spanked and one was spanked. If the result is still the same, could you really say that one was better or worse than the other?
Yeah, and I'd say like it all depends on how you measure result, right? Like because we're talking about something immeasurable like emotions and trauma. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it might not have a physical outlook on life, but there could be a bunch of different things that have been the causation of that action internally.
Yeah, but there's
He
2
said, "What
things.
does it matter if I can't see it?"
Not but yes, I agree what you're
Yeah.
saying. And I would add to that I've heard it said that if you haven't experienced pain, did you really learn anything? Which sounds pretty extreme, but it's the idea that if you haven't had an experience that really took something away from you outside of like understanding and what you've like read in a book, but then you actually experienced it, either be painful or pleasurable, did you really come to know or experience that? Because then it's the
Yeah.
difference between what's knowledge and what's wisdom.
Yeah, that's what that saying is saying. But like, you could see somebody in a situation and make the decision and never have to experience that, and that would be a wise choice. So it's like that saying is really a logical fallacy. If you've never felt the pain, did you really learn anything?
Okay, fair enough. Also, the other thing I want to add,
Okay, what's the second one? So we can break that down.
the other thing I wanted to add was, oh shoot, what was it? It's coming to me.
I feel like one of those AI characters that are on the internet right now. Like, wow, Jimmy, thank you. You know what I'm talking about? Thank you, Jimmy.
Damn, what was I gonna say?
I don't know. You were talking about the 2 situations. Like your final 2 reasons as to why you think that. Because you were saying that the 2 people are headed in the same direction, they end up in the same place. Then I brought up the aspect of trauma, emotions,
Oh,
something
right.
immeasurable, and then you said pain.
Right. So on that, I've also heard it said that pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
Mm.
And I don't know how true that still holds up in the sense of today's age, but I think the core behind that message is that you can't get around pain or scars and experiencing negative things in this world. But you can choose to suffer or like dwell on it or let it like affect you and hinder you from progressing. So in the same sense of like, if a kid got spanked and they felt some type of way about it, what's to stop me from, as a parent, like having those conversations and like walking through like unraveling what that is and having understandings, because there's a lot of things that I was frustrated about with my upbringing, parenting. But as I got older, I had a greater understanding as to
Yeah,
why those things needed
for
to
sure.
happen, which then doesn't change the fact that, oh, I can still do all the things I want to do. So then
Yeah.
it's like, am I trying to save them from pain altogether, or am I trying to help them navigate negative emotions and pain and how to deal with it?
For
Because
sure.
I feel like that's still a safer thing for me
Yeah.
to control and implement than the world teaches them. In the end, they have no fucking clue.
Yeah. But then they have you to fall back on.
Right, which they always
Yeah.
do, regardless if I spank them or not.
Yeah. And I mean, do you feel like you could always fall back on your mom?
Currently,
But like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's a lived out expression maybe of your childhood.
yeah. Well, I would say I can always fall back on my mom in the sense that, like, I know she's always there for me. No matter what, and she may feel some type of way about a situation, but I know she'll always be there,
Yeah.
you know. And so in that regard, there's no feeling of like, oh, I'm like one mistake away from complete being abandoned. That would be like worse than being spanked, because there's a lot of people who have been abandoned that's never been spanked, and they wish that, oh, I wish they would just stick around and discipline me or something.
Yeah.
You can make up. There's a scenario for everything, but
Yeah.
I feel like just giving up altogether is even worse than getting a spanking.
Yes, and I would agree with that. Yeah. Sorry.
So, so for me, that's why I say that spanking could be beneficial and probably the best option for specific people under the right circumstances.
Yeah.
And for me, it was that case. For others, maybe not so much, and different
Yeah.
approach should have been or should be implemented.
For sure. Yeah. Because I benefited from being spanked. Like, there were benefits, 100%. But I think I could have benefited in other ways.
Right.
It's just a slippery slope. And there's countries where it's illegal, and we're in a country where it's not. So we all end up in the same place.
Tough to say.
Tough to say.
But hey, let us know how you guys discipline your kids, or what is discipline your kids for those who want to have kids. This has been the Laboratory Podcast with Isaiah and Greg.
Yep. Thanks
Make
for
sure to
having me.
like, share, subscribe. And let us know in the comments below how you beat the ass. What you using to discipline them kids.
Crazy.
The chancla, the belt. Let us know.
Peace.